Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classics That's Known Classic. This episode number 1478 and Doubleshot number 1372. Yeah, first up we have the final trade for Harley Quinn Volume 3. I say final trade because they decided to, well, do something quite dumb with this book. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to that. Yeah, this is Hollywood or Die. Yep, the fifth and final trade of Sam Humphries' run. This collect issues 70 to 75. The artwork for these issues are done by Sam Bassari, Abel, Riley Ruspo, Nicola Scott, Nazuzo, and Joe Quinnis. Yep, the opening story arc of this one is basically about wrestling. Yep, it's all about wrestling. Her fighting various opponents, like fighting the wrestlers, and we have a demolition team. And then we have one basically fights like another one, who's Alicia the Cruiser, the Crusher. Yep. So it builds up to basically the anticipated fight between them. We have Boots the Goat up here as well, because why not? Yep. And of course they win, and then of course Harley wins 1, 2, 3, gives her a peck in the cheek as a thank you for allowing her to win. Harley Quinn the Queen, and of course, yay, and of course she goes to see her afterwards, and then she finds her murdered. Yep, finds her murdered, and she's basically doing the best she could for, because Ace the Crusher basically looked like she was a friend of hers, and she has various ways to basically figure out who actually killed her. And as for who actually really killed her, it is so dumb. Like, she got the promoter, and he doesn't want anything to do with it at all. And despite the fact she mentions about the woman's death, like, nah, don't mention it. Of course, she's hanging up Boost to go, and then, well, the person who's actually responsible for her death is quite dumb. Yes. Probably was an idiot for not allowing her to mention the death of a wrestler. Yeah, that's so dumb. Yep. We got some apocalyptic tech here. I'm talking to various people. My friend Harley. Yeah, apparently. Oh yeah, the upper crusher was the gold. Yep, and then she goes to visit some guy. Yeah, it says, oh yeah, I fell into a trap and thought you'd be coming. Yeah, apparently she knocked out his guards. Yeah. And then she has Harley Wood on the Hollywood sign. And then she proceeds to... He gets a note, and then of course, well... After chatting with him, and then... After talking to various people... They have a fight. She fights a guy. And... Yep, and the person who killed Alicia the Crusher is none other than Granny Goodness! I know that's basically like saying something like that is no gag from like Cars, but yeah. Apparently Granny Goodness is responsible for killing a wrestler. Now, you're probably thinking, why the heck would she kill a wrestler? She probably knew nothing about her. Reason? To get back at Harley. Yep. So face a bunch of parademons, and then she has to fight with Granny Goodness. Oh yeah, because she also damaged a statue featuring Darkseid. Yep. And then they proceed to brawl. Yep, and we get a flashback of her when she was younger, attacked by the dog, and Granny Goodness, when she was younger, she was a lovely woman. Oh my gosh. And now she's just this old lady, and And of course, well, going to a fire pit. And apparently, she just wakes up middle of the ring. Apparently, Alicia's alive, but nope. Yeah, she's actually in the hospital bed. And then apparently, take her ashes and dump them in the ocean, in the water. And then we have apparently the thing end with Harley and Booster Gold making up, but that's not the end. Nope, 75. We have a tie-in to Joker War. Yep, you have half the birthday Harley Quinn. You have her spoof a lot of stuff like Super Friends, the first parents, well, kind of the first parent, one of the early parents of Justice League, which is so fun. Just pure fun of an issue. Like, even spoof her time with the Suicide Squad, which is quite nice. Love it. And whole thing with the beaver thing, which is so hilarious. Yeah, basically her on her own with different artists. And then have her do like the whole thing with the animated series, which is awesome. Love the fact they brought this up here. And then the last story in here is on Riley Russo. I can tell by the artwork that's Riley Russo. And it's her and Punchline beating the crap out of each other. Yep, this is the Riley Russo one. And after fighting, have various flashbacks. And by the way, the thing ends with to be continued in Batman 96 Joker War. So you never Harley Quinn. Yep. And that's it for that. Yep. Volume 5, I give this one roughly excuse me, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. Final thoughts on Sam Humphries' run and Volume 3. Volume 3 had a fantastic start to it with retaining the writers of Jeremy Palmer and Connor, because why not? Because they had a successful run, so continue on the book. And then they left after issue 32. Not really, I don't really know exactly what was the reason. Actually, 34 they left with. Not really sure why they left, but they probably figured though 4 years, they probably had enough with it. And they handed out to Frank Terry briefly, and then Chris Sibley, and then the final writer being Sam Humphries. Now, the one thing I was not really a big fan of when it comes to this run is that there were no appearances in all the issues, except for the last one that Sam Humphries wrote. There's no appearance by Harley Quinn or Gang of Harleys. Yeah, and it's almost like she rather spent a lot of time on the West Coast than basically being in Brooklyn. It's almost seems as though like halfway through this run, it's like, oh, let's just switch it from Brooklyn, which is basically the book has been since the previous volume, and let's give all the stuff, like partway through the run, have her move out the West Coast with, like, moving with Selena Kyle for some reason, have an apocalyptic Fatal Fury moving with her, and I'm like, okay, what the heck happened to her building? What the heck happened to her Gang of Harleys? It's almost like Sam Humphries won. Nothing to do with that at all. He probably wanted to do his own thing with the book. This book, it did feel like a continuation of the run. It seemed like all those cool supporting characters that Jeremy Palmer and Matt Connor spent 4 years creating and developing these characters, shove them all to the side with the exception of her family. Yes, for some strange reason, Sam Humphries is like, by the issue 50 run, like, all those other cool characters, like, first dropped the Harley Quinn, he dropped her Harleys, and then he dropped Big Tony, Egg Foo, dropped her building. Like, anything cool about this series is, like, virtually dropped after like, issue 52. Because it seems like for the last 23 issues, it's her doing her own thing on the West Coast for some reason. Not really sure why Sam Humphries decided to change direction for the series, but he did. And the final issue came out in August of last year. And I think at the time, everybody thought this was going to be the end of the series. Fast forward ahead about, get this, 7 months later, we have a brand new #1 for Harley Quinn released. I'm like, really? You just ended this book last year, and you brought the book back. As far as I know, I don't know what, my only guess is the reason is because they thought, okay, let's end the book here. And they must have realized that, oh crap, we just ended a book that was super popular, and we have an animated series for this character, give her a series back. It's almost like this is basically like a last minute thing to bring her back. And the book itself, I think, is really good. And they have her wear the outfit she wore from the animated series, but I'm like, okay, then why did you end the book for? Just keep the book going. Why end it? It makes no freaking sense why you bring it back 7 months later. It just no reasoning for it at all. Alright, moving on to Thor, World Eater. This is the start of Matt Fraction's run for this book. Yes. Yeah, a run that lasted for a year, but he put out a lot of issues. This collects issues of Thor, issues 615, 621, and 620.1. Yes. Now, the artwork for these books, now he does do 20.1, matter of fact, that's done by Dan and Lenny, and art by Mark Brooks. The main story here is done by, of course, Fraction, of course, artwork by Mikhail Fury. Cover art is by Mikhail Fury and Matt Hosworth, which I believe is the colorist. And the cover art for 16.1, 1620.1, that's Emma Gannis and Laura Martin. Now, the World Eater storyline is basically this sort of like, okay, we're dealing with the aftermath of a siege. Asgard is still in ruins, so it does get fixed after this. And Boulder the Brave gets killed in the storyline. Yeah, he gets killed and ends up in Hela's domain. So they need a leader, but they don't trust Thor to take up leadership, despite the fact he is a legitimate leader. So he's like, screw this and all the ruins of Asgard. Decided to bring back Odin, a character who had been dead at this point since Dan Jurgens wrote the book. Yes, he's been dead since I think 2000. I think it was 2003 when he died. Let me look it up because I know that Dan Jurgens, when he came on board, he had Odin die in his opening story arc. Because it was just in the opening story they killed off Odin. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, for some reason they had Odin die. Yeah, I'm not really sure what was the purpose of killing off Odin, but that's simply what they did. Let's see if I can find him here. Yeah, at some point, I think it was issue 36, I think it was, when they finally decided to kill off Odin. I'm trying to find it here. Because at some point they said kill off Odin for some strange reason and made Thor the king of Asgard. And this lasted for a pretty good period of time. Okay, he died in issue 40. Yes, issue 40 of the second volume back in 2001. So he'd been dead at this point for 10 years. And they bring him back because they need a leader to deal with the War Eater stuff. And Odin is put back on the throne. And he remained on that throne until 2019. For 8 years, he was the king of Asgard. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, and also in the storyline, we also have the return of Loki. Yes, Loki had been dead at this point for a year. So Thor finds him and basically borns the body of a little boy. And this little boy was actually around for a year. And then at the end, after this, he got his own series. Yes, Loki got his very first ongoing series. Journey to Mystery. Started from issue 622, ended with 645. Though from 645 to 655, it was Lady Sif's series. And at the end of the book, he died. Yep, he died. Though, Colin Bunn decided to revive him in, I think it was 2018, I think it was, with the Asgardians of the Galaxy series. They brought back the Kid Loki character. But yes, the best thing you could say about this series, this particular story, it's a lot dealing with the aftermath of a lot of stuff happened previously with Jam S and Karen Gillian stuff. That's what this is dealing with. Also laying the groundwork for the relaunch of the book. While also dealing with some hanging plot threads of the previous writer's work. Like having the character Bill's girlfriend just living with his parents. Yep. Oh yeah, you also have it where Iron Man appears in this book. Yes, Iron Man is here. And, well, you have Donald Blake appearing here. Where he's annoying Thor like crazy. And right after, here's Kid Loki in his debut. Yep, that's what he looked like. He was around for a year. Then Gillen decided to die at the end of the run. And then, of course, they bring back Odin after fighting a bunch of birds. They bring it back there with these creatures known as warriors because they need a leader. Yes, they need a leader. So yeah, Odin comes back and he pretty much takes over leadership of Asgard. And he's leading from Asgard at this point forward. So yeah, so despite the fact having to deal with a bunch of other stuff, we have basically like a coming out party for like the death of like Boulder the Brave, and deal with the whole thing. We have appearance by Greg Gargoyle in the last couple issues of this book. Yeah, really fun stuff here. It almost seems like we have a really fun start to this run. And then we get to the very first story arc of the relaunch, and it's okay. I mean, there's some okay stuff happens in the book. I mean, yeah. The 620.1 just deals with, well, Bill's girlfriend who's an Asgardian, and that's simply it. Yeah, not much else to it, but yeah, for the start of Matt Fraction's run for this book, it is really good. It's a good start, but then came Mighty Thor. I've already reviewed that already, so next thing I'll probably review for Matt Fraction, probably Volume 2 for Mighty Thor. Oh, I give this book roughly a 9.5 out of 10. This book is just pure fun, and it's great, though, that we have some pretty good things here. We revived 2 characters. One had been dead for 10 years. The other one had been dead for a year. Yeah. First it was Loki, and then bring back Odin. Like, I'm not sure what was the reasoning for Matt Fraction to bring back Odin, but yeah. And still continuing some stuff JMS started with the whole thing of Thor hanging out with the citizens of Braxton, Oklahoma, which is something he would continue throughout his whole run. Matt Fraction continued this thing with Thor hanging out with being in the Braxton stuff, Braxton, Oklahoma. This would last until the end of Matt Fraction's run. And by the time Jason came on board, Jason Aaron decided not to use anything related to Braxton until toward the end of Thor God of Thunder, which they appeared sporadically after that. But yeah, still very prominent. And I think the reason why, because a lot of readers like the Braxton, Oklahoma stuff, it's really interesting. I like it too. But this book was just pure fun. Love it. Okay, so that's it, Sick Love You. One video we'll do today, and that'll be a review for the first episode of Season 2 from Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. Okay, it's the next video. Bye.